We've seen some techniques for building the baseboards for the floors of our interior structure here. Now I'm going to show you a different technique, a technique that's going to be extremely useful for doing the moldings. Okay, and if I go over here to View Image File, it's a little bit difficult to see here in this image. Again, Google Images is a great way to search for reference material when doing something like this or any type of modeling. But you can see the moldings are basically the top part here that is kind of like baseboards, but they connect the ceiling here with the walls. Okay, so it's the opposite of baseboards. Baseboards on the bottom, they run along the floor. Moldings are going to be up here at the top running along the ceiling. Okay. If I go over here, I have a couple more images. Let me just bring up another image here. Here's another image of the moldings there. Might be a little bit difficult to see, not the highest quality image there. But you can see basically moldings have sort of this cool design to them, and they really add a lot of detail to your structure. So if you're building something like this in 3D, say for example a house like this, you definitely want to build moldings. You definitely want to build moldings, as it's going to add a lot more depth and detail to your model. So let me go in here, let me go to polygon mode, and let me unhide all polygons, because I'm going to be working in another area here. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to hide these ceiling polygons. So I'll go to visibility, I'll hit hide selected. Okay, there we go. Not bad. Alright, now I'm going to show you a different technique for doing the moldings of the ceilings. We're not going to use the same technique that we've been using down here, at least not for the most part. We're going to use a technique that's faster and easier. In fact, it's extremely fast and extremely easy. Anybody can do it. So what is this technique? Well, we're going to improvise a little bit here. We know that we need to create a molding, basically, sort of baseboard for the ceiling here, and it's got to follow the entire top floor ceiling, which means following all of these different angles and contours here of our ceiling. So we have a lot to do. Okay? Here's the little trick for doing this as fast as possible. We're going to go to the Creation tab. We've been using the Pro Booleans, that's why I'm in the Compound Objects here. We're not going to use any of these geometric objects. We're going to switch over to Shapes, and we're going to use Splines. Okay? And I'm going to use the Line object. I'm going to make sure I have Vertex Snapping turned on, and you're going to see why in a moment. I'm going to snap a line over here and start creating a line, basically. You can see how we can create a line. Just start clicking on the different vertices of basically the corner of the ceiling here. Now when you run out of room, just go ahead and pan over here and right click to end the creation process. The line should still be selected. Go to the Modify tab, okay? And down here we have a little tool here. It says Create Line. If we go ahead and click that, we can continue creating our line. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just click here where we left off, and then click here, and here, and there. And there. Basically just it's like connecting the dots. It's extremely easy to do. Just make sure you don't miss anything. So click where you left off, then click again. I'll click where I left off, and I'll click again. And I think I missed a spot over here somewhere. Pretty sure I did. Let me isolate selection here. Oh, and I missed a very big spot over here. Okay, so it's very easy to get caught up and sort of lose track of what you're doing and miss something. So I'll go back to Create Line. And I know I missed that spot, and that spot there. Okay? Alright. Next thing I'll do is I'll hit 1 to go to Vertex Mode, basically. So the spline object has vertices. So I'll select all the vertices by hitting Control A. And then I'm going to go down here to Weld. I'm going to hit Weld just to weld any loose vertices together. Okay. Now I just noticed that I have a bit of a problem here. And this is something that's very easy to miss. And when you're working on a big complex project that's very time involved and you're spending a lot of time on it and a lot of energy on it, it's very easy to be moving along, make a mistake, not notice it, and continue moving along. Okay? So in this case, I noticed that I did make a mistake. And it's good that I caught this so I can show you how to fix it very easily. If you look at this wall, basically, let me select the wall geometry here. This is the edge that I'm talking about. That edge right there is slanted. It's crooked. It's wrong. Okay? If you look at the edge back here, it's perfectly straight. This one is not. And if I go to a left view, go to wireframe mode, or let me go to a front view. Okay, you can see it in a front view. If I go to a front view and I look at that edge, I can see that it's crooked. It's slanted. Okay? That is a big no-no. Don't want that. That's going to cause some serious problems. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up the Transform Type In tool here. I'm going to select the bottom vertex of the line and check its X coordinate. And the X coordinate is exactly at 4. And if I check the X coordinate of this vertex on that end of the wall right there, I can see it's also 4. So something tells me that's right. If I select this vertex up here, it's 4 feet and 1 point something inches. So I know that one's off. So I'll just go ahead and type in 4. And there we go. Problem is solved. Quickly have a look at that, see if anything's off. And if it is, fix it. It looks like I fixed the problem though, so there shouldn't be a problem. Now because I was tracing my spline object on the top based on the wall, it's off too. But that's not a problem. I'll just take the vertex, go to the Transform Type In, and type in 4, and that fixes up the problem. Be a good idea to go ahead and scan this real quick when you get a chance. Make sure there's no mistakes there, or you're not leaving anything wrong in your path, because that could come back and bite you in the rear later. Okay, so now that I have the line object complete, what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate the selection, and there's the outline. There's basically a tracing of the ceiling there, where the molding has to go. So what I'm going to do now is actually pretty simple. Now it's going to get pretty easy. Now that the tracing's been done, I can simply hit Control and V to go ahead and clone this spline object, and I want to make a copy of it, not an instant or reference, a copy, and hit OK. And it's a different object. As you can see, now I have 2 spline objects. Alright. Now if I open up the Transform Type In tool, I can see that right now it's located at 19 feet 12 inches, which is also 20 feet. And I'm going to make my molding about 6 inches wide. Okay, my baseboard I believe was about 4 inches, maybe 5 inches, something like that. I want the molding to be a little bit bigger, so I'll make about 6 inches. So to do that, it's actually pretty easy. I'll go to the offset world over here, and for the Z, I'm going to go ahead and type in -6. And that's going to move my copy here of my spline object 6 inches. So basically, imagine that's the blueprint there for the molding. It's now 6 inches wide, as you can see. Alright, so now what I'll do is, with either line selected, doesn't matter which one you have selected, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach these together. So to attach that, go over here to the Modify tab over here, and hit the Attach, and just select the other edge, or other line object, or spline object I should say. Okay, let me go ahead and isolate selection again. Okay, so we're almost there. Now what I want to do is I want to apply a modifier. I'll go up here to the modifier drop down list, and I'm going to go down, and the modifier I'm going to look for is called cross section. Okay, so I'll drop a cross section modifier, and it's going to connect the top and bottom spline objects together. So I'm about halfway there, okay, but it's not a 3D object just yet. I'll drop another modifier. I'm going to go and look for a surface modifier, and now it's sort of a 3D object. Not really, but it sort of is. And you notice it has this weird coloration right there. See that? We'll fix that in a moment. Down here we have a very important parameter. It says patch topology, and it says 5 steps. I'm going to show you what happens if we don't change that setting, okay? If I drop another modifier here, say an edit poly modifier, you notice that our object is heavily tessellated. We have a lot of extra edges and vertices all over the place, which is no good. That's because the patch parameter that we looked at a moment ago is set too high. It's set to 5. So let me delete that edit poly modifier, and I'll go down here to patch topology and take the steps down to 0. Alright? And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to drop the edit poly modifier again. And now you notice we don't have that problem anymore. We have a shading issue though. You can see here that it looks a little bit weird. If I turn my camera around, certain areas turn black and then certain areas lighten up back to its pink color. Okay? The problem with that is the normals are off. So I'm going to go to polygon mode, select all the polygons. And what I'll do is I'll come up here to the graphite modeling tools and I'll go to properties, and I'm going to hit this button that says smooth 30. And once I do that, it fixes my smoothing problem perfectly, so we don't have a problem anymore. Alright? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse the entire modifier stack. I'll hit yes. Okay, so we're good. I'm also going to go to views and turn on X view here and turn on open edges. Now we should have green edges on the top and on the bottom of the entire object, but we should not have any green edges on these cross-section edges that go up and down that connect the top and bottom together. You should not have any green edges right there. If you do, it means you have open edges. You need to select those vertices and weld them together. Close those open edges, or else you're going to have a serious problem on your hands. Okay? My object doesn't have any open edges, so I'm good. I'm going to exit isolation mode, and there we go. Now we have our geometry that we're going to use to create the moldings. Now it's simply a matter of getting creative with this. Let me go over here and turn the X view off. Okay, so what do I mean about getting creative? Well, I have some reference images. I strongly suggest you do the same. Go on some kind of search engine, do a search for moldings, okay? And find yourself plenty of reference images. Based on reference images that I've seen and studied, I'm going to go ahead and just, out of my own imagination, create a molding here. So I'm going to kind of do this on the fly. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to select all the polygons here, and I'm going to extrude these. I'm going to go to the quad menu and open up the Extrude Options. I'm going to work with the tool options here quite a bit. Alright? Now, the initial extrusion height of 10 inches is way too much. And also, I want to do this by the local normal. See, if I go by polygon, kind of messes it up. If I go by group, it really messes everything up. So local normal is what you want to use. 10 inches is way too much, so we're going to reduce that by quite a bit. I'm going to go with about, actually half an inch looks pretty good. I think I might go with half an inch, or let's try 1 inch, see what we end up with. I'll stick with 1 inch for now. Doesn't look too bad. Okay, so once I do that, I'll just hit OK. Then I'm just going to take this edge that's right there. I'm going to select the ring. So I select the ring of edges all the way around. And the cool thing is that as we model this area out, the entire object is going to be affected this exactly as we see it here in my viewport. So I don't have to worry about the rest of the object or cutting sections and sticking them together and using crow booleans or any of that stuff. I don't have to put up with that. Instead, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to go to the connect options here, and I'm going to connect these edges. And I'll connect it one time straight down the middle. So pinch 0, slide 0, hit OK. I'm going to select this polygon that's right up here, and I'm going to select this polygon right there. I'm going to go to modify selection, select a loop, and if I pull out here with my camera, I can see that yes, in fact, I did select the loop correctly. You want to make sure you're on top of stuff like that. Don't want to get surprised later. I'll go to the extrude options, and I'll extrude this out. I think about another inch will be good, so I'll hit OK. Then I'll take this edge again, select the ring, go to connect. I'll go to the connect options, connect it one time in the middle, hit OK. I'm going to select this top polygon and that one right there. I'm going to select the loop, and I'm very paranoid. So I'll pull back and make sure I do have the loop selected. Once I just visually quickly confirm that I do, I'll extrude this again with the options. And 1 inch might work pretty good. So I'll hit OK. Alright, so that's enough extrusion for the moment. Alright. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this edge down here. Select the ring, so I have the entire ring of edges selected. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the connect tool. And I'm going to connect this a couple of times like this, 2 times. And I'll hit OK. Then I'm going to select this polygon, that one. I'm going to make sure that I select the entire loop. Again, I want to check and make sure that I do. And I do have the entire loop selected. I'm going to go to extrude, to the options here. And I don't want to extrude out. I'm going to extrude negatively this time. So I'm going to hit, put a negative right there. And you can see it gets pushed so far in that it's clipping with the wall. So what I want to do is I want to reduce that. So maybe I'll go with about 1/2 inch instead, like so. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'll hit OK. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that inside edge and the bottom inside edge of that little geometry I've created. Select the loop all the way around. And I'm going to use the chamfer tool to make some interesting looking geometry here. Okay. I'm going to add plenty of segments. Maybe I'll add about 8 segments. And I'm going to increase the chamfer amount to about 1/2 inch is pretty good. Don't have to be totally exact. Actually, no, you want to go less than 1/2 inch or else you're going to have a clipping issue. So about 0.4, 0.46 is what I've got. Looks pretty good. So you create this really cool kind of chiseled in effect right there. I'll hit OK. And the next thing I'll do is I'll select that edge up there, select its loop, go to chamfer. I'll chamfer it plenty, something like this. Okay. And I'll add about 12 segments to make it look nice and smooth. Alright. I'm going to take the top edge right there, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select the loop. I'm going to go to chamfer. And I'm going to chamfer it to the point where the chamfer goes all the way to the top. 12 segments is good. I'll hit OK. So we create sort of interesting looking molding there. This part doesn't look interesting enough in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is select that edge. I'll select the ring. And I'll select the ring of edges all the way around. I'll use the connect tool. And let's make a few connections here. We'll make about 4 connections. Will probably look pretty good. I'll hit OK. Go to polygon mode, select those 2 polygons and then those 2 polygons in the bottom. So I have basically these 2 strips of polygons selected. Go to modify selection and the graphite modeling tool, select the loop. Make sure I have the loop selected all the way around. I do. I'm going to go to extrude. I'm going to extrude that not so much, just a little bit. Around 0.2 in the negative. I'll hit OK. Now I'm going to select the inside edge there of the new geometry that I created. The inside top and bottom edges. Select all 4 of those. Okay. And I'm going to select our loops and I'm going to chamfer those. And see if I come up with a pretty interesting design here. I'm going to knock down the segments to about maybe 6. I don't want to get too crazy with it. Maybe I'll just go with 8. Or not. 6, 8 appears to be a bit much. So something like this looks pretty good. Zoom in here a little bit too much. I'm going to stick with 6 of them. And there we go. I'll do a design like that. So I'll create a kind of chiseled in effect for that area as well. So really it depends on how crazy you want to get with this, how much time you want to dedicate to it. And you can create some pretty interesting molding effects here. You can see this molding already looks pretty interesting. If I wanted to, I could take this loop of edges down here. I could chamfer that. It's going to create a pretty interesting effect as well. Maybe I'll pull out and do a quick little test render. and I get an error message when I try to test render. It's telling me that an object called Object 3 has a mesh with invalid vertices and something like that. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to hit H to open up the scene selection tool here. And I'm going to tell it to look for an object 03, and it found it for me. There it is. So I'll select it. And it's this object down here. You can see it's a pro Boolean object, so it doesn't like that. So I'll go ahead and convert that to an editable poly. And now my rendering feature's back. Alright, so now that I can test render again, I don't have strange errors popping up. I'll just come in here and do a quick little test render of this. Not the best render, but it gives you a good overall idea of how this is looking. And it looks pretty interesting, it looks pretty cool. And if we pull back and we look at this from a little bit of a distance here, we can see that the baseboards and the moldings for the ceiling there look awesome. They add a lot of detail and depth to your scene, and really makes a huge difference between something that's amateur and something that looks more finished and more professional. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to end this video here, and in the next one we're going to focus on finishing up doing some ceiling moldings for these little hallways down here on the first floor. That's going to require a little bit of a different technique, and you'll get to see that coming up next.